Hey, this is a really impromptu video, but it's been cooking for quite some time now. And um, I didn't expect to be like actually moved to make this video at this time, but I am. Um, yeah, this is going to be a little bit different. As you all know, I don't usually make videos anymore. um, but I felt like I needed to right now. And I feel like I need to for my own healing and also just to share and bring resonance to what I'm about to talk about. Um, just as a little disclaimer, I don't know, just as a disclaimer, yeah, this is going to be a pretty heavy video. Uh, I don't know if I believe in like the trigger warnings or whatever, but this is a pretty heavy video regarding things related to death and mental health and race and um, my personal experiences with all those things, as well as like just philosophical stuff that is not necessarily so heavy, but that I have found to be a bit frightful. Like, it's just my own personal thing, like existential stuff, um, which is really what inspired this video anyway, in the beginning. But want to, I want to begin by sharing the initial inspiration for this video and like I was titling it Death Anxiety because that's what I had been experiencing for some time now. Yeah, I was originally inspired to make this video because I had found myself regularly experiencing like really intense bouts of death anxiety. And for me, I have experienced really intense fear of death at different points in my life. It used to be um, pretty bad when I was in like maybe 17, 18. And then it came back maybe a few years ago, and then I started like studying mediumship and getting into like the spirituality and trying to really discover like what people who are alive know about death or the other side from their psychic communications, because I do believe in those things. And that actually quelled my fear of death for a little while, um, because it actually like really resonated on a deep level that death is not the end, and that there is not nothingness, even if we don't understand it. Um, but I think, yeah, my fear of death, just for reference, it was or is a fear of not just the unknown, but a particular fear of nothing, like nothingness. I tried to organize my thoughts a little bit more, and that didn't work. So I'm just gonna talk off the cuff like I usually do. So yeah, I just found myself having this intense fear of nothingness and nothingness after death. And I started questioning, um, all of my spiritual, like all of the things that I had studied, all the things that resonated, all the things that made sense to me about life after death, and the things that we don't completely understand as human beings. And I started to think, well, what if it's kind of like what happens when you just lose consciousness completely and you go under anesthesia or something like that, where, um, you know, when the times that I have gone under anesthesia, what happens is I don't even know when I'm falling asleep, if you want to call that sleep. I don't even know when I've lost consciousness. There's no fade, there's no fade out, there's no nothing. It's just you're there and then you're gone. Something switches off. And then when you wake up, it was like there was nothing. There was nothing in between. There was no time passage, no dream, no nothing. And for me, if that is what it's like to die, is to completely lose consciousness, and that there is like the passage of time is essentially just nothing, that there is no time, there is no anything, that to me, that scares the shit out of me. And but it makes perfect sense as something that is completely possible or even probable of what happens after we die, and or when we die. And I started grappling with that because that was really my original, I guess, I, I used to be afraid of something bad happening to us when we die. And then even just the thought of nothing happening, that sheer just nothing is scary to me. And I know that that doesn't scare a lot of people, and like I guess I'm trying to get to your level, but bear with me here. I I think that I started to, in recent weeks, to question even my these kind of new age beliefs on spirituality, and like this idea that we tend to hold on to of things happening in a certain way to our spirits after we die. And not just religiously, like you see Jesus or whatever, but like even in the new age or even more spiritual beliefs of your spirit passing through certain passages, and you see, your loved ones, or like you're guided through portals and shit. Like, what if none of that shit happens? And what if this is just it? And that, ironically, it didn't negate my spiritual beliefs, or like belief in psychic abilities, or different dimensions or anything. It's just like, what if this is everything? Like, what if this is um, I think that, like, sometimes we tend to hold on to this idea that we're not actually dying, that we're going to be ourselves, but just in a different form, because it's just another way of evading dying, or the concept of actual death. And I do believe that when you die, you die. Like, even if we don't understand it, there is something like a release that happens in some way that I don't understand. And I started really to contemplate that, like, what if this is everything? And, when, like, it doesn't mean that there is no energy, that there is no spirit, that there is no psychic communication, or anything like that. But I started questioning, like, when a medium is speaking to someone who has passed, what are they actually picking up on? We don't completely understand the spirit world or the energetic world, because we're human beings and we live in the flesh, and we can't escape that unless we die. So I started really thinking about those things. And yeah, honestly, it all scared me. And I every time I would think about it, I would just, like, my heart would start racing, and I would kind of get into this, like, flighty, panicked feeling, and I'd have to breathe and come back to center. And it just became scary to me. And I think I just also started to think about my brother, which is really what actually inspired this video. Because when I started to think about making a video about all these things to talk about the anxiety I was experiencing, I kind of shooed the thought eventually because I thought that this is just philosophical jargon and I'm probably just going to get like a bunch of trolls on my page um, telling me to stop thinking about it and that this is not worth even anything. Like, let me just not even talk about it because a lot of times I just upload videos and nobody says anything anyway, so let me not even waste my time. So yeah, I was just on that track, and then something happened that changed everything. A few days ago, like on Saturday, this was like 4 days ago. So yeah, a few days ago, um, I was actually talking to um, some friends about this and sharing like that I was experiencing death anxiety, and I was actually like experiencing it in the moment, like it just the thought came up in my head, and I just shared with everyone, and I think um, some moments later I went into my room, or I think before that, just a few minutes from like that same night, I had noticed that there was this huge fire. Um, there was a huge fire like outside of my window, like across the road, like a huge fire with lots of smoke, and there it would look like a whole building, um, a whole floor of a building must have caught on fire or something. It was huge, and there were fire trucks like blocking the main road, and police cars everywhere, and it was really a scene. That I'm saying this because it's relevant to what I'm about to share, but I just wanted to like preface it with this. So yeah, I was sharing that, and the very next day, my mom um, calls me, or I call my mom because she sent me an email and she told me that she needs to tell me something really important before I come and stay with her next year. And she sounded really urgent and she sounded really tense, even though she was trying to cover up the fact that it was really intense what she was sharing. And I was like ready to hold space for it. So the next morning, I called her, and I just sat on the phone and listened as she unfurled this story, this long story of what really happened to my brother 2 years ago when he died. And some of you guys know that the day that after I discovered my brother died, the morning after, I made a video on YouTube, like a 42-minute video on YouTube, talking about how he how he died. Well, not talking about how he died, but like I made a 42-minute video just processing the whole experience of his death, and I mentioned that he had been in a car accident because that was what I was told. Um, and it seemed so random at the time that, you know, he was in a car accident that happened to kill him, like just straight up kill him. Like, I know that that happens to people, but what a probability that that happened at that particular time, because my brother was actually, and I said this in the video, and I always say this, that he was struggling with mental health issues. And I, it was hard for me to believe at the time, but I think that it was also, the way that I processed his death was that the car accident was still a result of his mental health issues somehow. Like, I always knew that, or I intuited that even if he was in a car accident, And even if I don't know the details, that I do believe that it was somehow related to his mental health, because, he could have been having an episode. He could have, like, been shaken up and distracted, driven himself off the road, or, it could have just been that he wanted to crash himself in an accident, you know? Um, and I always kind of like intuited that. Like, I didn't think that it was a coincidence, at least. Um, and at the most, I felt like if it was, then the universe sent that so that he could be free of his suffering. And I, for a long time, got so much peace from his death. Like, even though I was sad at first, I felt fine after some weeks because I knew that he was free of suffering. Even when people would ask me about Baba, that's what my nickname for him, Baba. Even when people would ask me about Baba, like, they would be like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? Like, you're smiling when you talk about him." Like, yeah, he's just free. Yeah, like, he was really struggling and now he's free. Like, like, this, he died and it's okay. And somehow, like, it's interesting that I talk about this fear of death, but I do know that death can also be, death is not the pain of life. It's, or death is not like the human pain, that we experience, at least. I know that, eh, even if it's just temporary, I don't know if we're reborn or whatever, but I just knew that I thought of him as free, and that gave me a lot of peace. But when my mom spoke to me, she just started to tell me, she told me, "I need to tell you the real story of what happened to him." And then she went into this long, slightly altered version of what she told me in the beginning. And she told me this story basically about, she told me basically, long story short, that um, he drove himself into the forest, this beautiful forest near my childhood home, where, like, it's like a park, where people walk their dogs, and it's one of the most beautiful places in town, that's kind of secret, and not only residents really know about it, really, and students. He drove himself in there with her car that he borrowed, and his body was found in the car the next morning. In fact, the day before, he had told her that he's going to be out late, so don't wait up for him. And the whole day, he answered his phone, strangely enough, because he always has his phone switched off. But that very day, he had answered his phone, like, any time that she called. And my mom was actually trying to set up psychiatry appointments for him. And that day, the day before his body was found, she had told him, like, "Hey, I set up the psychiatry appointment, and it's going to be in New York, and I got a hotel room for us, and, we're going to get you the help that you need." Um, and then he just told her, like, "Don't wait up for me tonight. I'm going to be home late. Don't worry about me." And yeah, I'm getting kind of emotional now already, because I was crying before I made this video. So yeah, she told me that story, and I'm gonna go in order of, like, how I discovered this, because I think that's important. I need to get certain things out first. So he was found in the car. The local police in my area, went to my mom's house where he was living at the time, in he had his own room. And um, when she saw the police coming out, she screamed because she already like sensed it, like what was going on. She just knew that he was in trouble, and she started screaming that he's dead. And she didn't know what happened at all, but that's what happens. Like when the police just show up at your house like that, then that means that somebody's dead or they're delivering bad news. And they went, they, when they, she didn't want to open the door, and she was talking to them through the door because it was like really hard news. But they actually didn't even deliver any news. They just told her that they found him locked in the car. They haven't opened the car yet. They are afraid to open the car because they think that he might be carrying explosives or a bomb, and that they need to search the house. They need to search his room in particular. So they said take us to his room, and she did. They still haven't told her what's going on. They haven't told her anything. They said take us to his room. She took them to his room. They searched his room. It was clean. It was like well kept. There was nothing like, he is kind of like a nerd, so there's just like papers and like a huge desk and a bed and his closet, and they didn't find anything. And then they looked at her and they were like, okay, now take us to where he really stays. And at this point, my mom is just like so beside herself, and she's pretty much going through this by herself. I mean, there was another tenant living with her at the time. But yeah, since my brother had taken her car, she got the tenant to drive her to the site, which was nearby. And one of our neighbors who has known us and known my brother since he was a child, just followed behind the police car just to be nosy of like what's going on, why did the police show up in the neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. So when they got there, my neighbor, like my mom is receiving this news, and she's at the site of all of this, everything that's happening, and there's fire trucks, and they're getting ready to tow the car out, and there's the ambulance, and our neighbor, who I know who this is, like I grew up with her children, and we live in a white neighborhood. This is a very white area. This woman goes straight past my mom and goes straight to the police officer and talks to him. She doesn't even mind my mom. And after that, like after this whole incident, it was on the news. It was all over the news. He was unidentified on the news. I will get into that. But yeah, yeah. So after that, my mom told me that none of the neighbors showed her any compassion. Nobody came by to express their condolences, even though everybody knew what happened. And everyone, word spread, and everybody knew what happened, and everyone knew it was him, and everyone just ignored her and ignored her pain. That they would stop, and they would wave like and smile and grin, but like nobody came to like talk to her and say like, hey, we're sorry about what happened to your son, you know? And they do that for each other. They do that for each other, and and my mom has really like been very caring towards one of our neighbors who I also grew up with when her husband passed, and everyone was just they I don't know. There was such a lack of sensitivity and care and awareness and compassion, and so she just started ignoring the neighbors, you know, and she closed herself off to them, and you know, she asked me to do the same, which is a whole nother thing. But my mom still wouldn't tell me what exactly happened to him because she lied to me about the way that he died. And it took me, like, I was more so like in a tiff with her because she was pressuring me to like not talk to certain people in the neighborhood before I even had a chance to process this. But after I got off the phone with her, I realized like, oh, that means that he wasn't in the hospital for a week in a coma. That was all a lie. He didn't die on June 22nd. When did he actually die? When, how long had he been dead by the time that I found out? What happened? I was told a completely different story that was all made up, that was all fabricated. And I lived, I guess, halfway in that story for 2 years. So I researched it with some keywords, and I found a bunch of news articles about it. I would research my brother's name. I would Google his name for like just randomly. Like if I just wanted some kind of relic, some sort of something like to remember him by, and I would Google him and nothing would come up because he wasn't online, he wasn't on social media like that, and you know, he was very to himself, very closed off. But then I found all the articles. 32-year-old man, body found in park near so and so, in like, and I look at the photos and I know exactly where this is because this is one of my favorite places to go. It's so beautiful and so peaceful, you know, and so like it's just one of my special spots to go to, like a huge forest with like next to a community garden. And I found these articles and I look at them and I see that that he had died a week earlier, and that that they found his body on the 15th, which is 7 days before my mom told me that he had died that very morning. So I was told he died the morning of June 22nd, which is when I called her, and he had been dead for a whole week. And there, it was like, and I found this, and they didn't go into any details. They were very like general about it, but it was just, yeah, body found in car. Chief medical examiner will determine the cause of death. More details will be updated later. They never updated any details. And when they said that there was a small fire found in the car, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I knew what it meant, but I was like, what does that mean? How did he die? What exactly happened? what did he do? Did he burn something? Did he burn something in the car? Did he burn himself? Like, what happened? And then yesterday I called the chief medical examiner's office, and they told me that he set himself on fire. And he died from smoke inhalation. And just before I made this video because I was like, this morning was so productive, you know? Um, I uploaded this podcast that I was interviewed in and blah, 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 blah. And then I was like responding to a bunch of messages. And then I just got up from the bed and I just burst out crying. Like, it's a whole new type of grief to actually like see a vision of how he killed himself, and to know that he burned himself to death intentionally. And I think, you know, I was crying because I was like, I'm so sorry that, because I was just, I, it, it's one of those things that will never not be sad, you know, because it really is a tragedy. And it's, I like, I cry because he died in such a painful way, and he chose that for himself. And I was like, you didn't even want to, you know, you didn't even want to go it quickly and peacefully, or, you know, painlessly. You just set yourself on fire, and that's what you felt like you deserved. That's like what you felt like your existence amounted to, was just to be absolutely destroyed, and that your life wasn't valuable. And the people in your community who were aware didn't treat your life as if it had value. And they criminalized him even after he was already dead. Like, they were afraid of him even after he was completely harmless. Like, I'm not like, you know, I'm more so, I don't want to like turn this into like this whole political issue, because I know that like it's it's all like a part of this bigger system and everything, and I don't want to talk about that as much. I am more hurt by his internal pain and suffering. I am more hurt that he felt like I'm hurt just thinking about him inhaling that smoke and staying there, and his face burning, and him just staying there, and he that that is a reflection of the pain that he was feeling, and I completely understand that, because like when you're in so much pain inside, like you hurting yourself physically, just it's just like it almost matches, it just matches what you're already feeling, so for someone to put themselves through that level of pain and destruction, that is literally how they were feeling inside, and that hurts so much, because I just would have wanted so much to be there for him, and I knew I was the one who always knew how much he was suffering mentally. I was always the one who knew, even though no one else really really knew. Like, I think everyone else, he just, I don't know, he could never, I could always see through him, and he could never like really put anything past me, and I would always call him out too. And so it's not so much a surprise. I was waiting for years. I was waiting for the time that death would come knocking at his door. I was like, he's gonna kill himself years ago, like 2 years before he actually did it. I was like, he's gonna kill himself, or he's gonna get into an accident where he has a near-death experience and he's going to choose to live. Either one of those two, there's no other way for him, because he's too in deep. He's not connecting with us. He's not sharing his pain. He's denying the care that is available to him. I cared about him. I wanted him to live. I wanted him to thrive. I wanted him to be empowered, and I wanted us to do yoga. And he always thought that it was like just for hippy dippy people like me. And I always suggested that he meditate, but maybe that wasn't right for him, because he was hearing voices and stuff, and maybe it would just take him in deeper into that. But you know, I was I could have been his safe space, and I was right there. He could have told me anything. He could have told me anything, and I would have never judged him. But he was so afraid to open up, and that's what killed him. He was all by himself inside of his own mind. And when he was buried, it makes sense, because when I saw his body, I was like, why does his face look like this? He's wearing so much makeup. They just tried to hide everything. I was the only one who could see him anyway, because I asked you. He just looked like a doll. And I cry, because I cry for his pain and his life that, it didn't have to be this way. I know I said that, for him I knew that death was coming, but I also know that it didn't have to be this way. And I'm sad for his pain, and I'm sad for this world that also, caused his pain. And I don't even know like the depths of what he really went through, because he didn't really share. But I mean, I saw it, I sensed it. And I just wanted to share this, because I feel like people need to know. I think people need to know what I'm experiencing. I've been through a lot this year. And I also think that people, maybe if anyone is from my area, like I'm originally from Western Massachusetts, Northampton. If anyone from that area is um, yeah, can connect with this in some way and connect the dots, I think that they should know about this too. I think that people who see me, it's a small town that I'm from, I'm a familiar face, and I think that people should know what happened and how that this situation was treated, because he didn't deserve this and my family didn't deserve this, and he deserves so much better, and I love him. And I don't know where, like, what happened, to his energy, or the windows open. I don't know what happened to his energy or his spirit. I mean, I've had a lot of dreams and a lot of communication with him after he died. I haven't had any since I discovered this news, because I've been kind of like feeling a little bit on guard, like, before I sleep. But he visits me in my dreams a lot, and it's very vivid and realistic, and that gives me a lot of comfort, because he's always like doing really well, and he like feels really good and really powerful. But I'm sad that he had to experience this, because nobody deserves that. So, if Baba can hear me, I just want him to know that I love him, and I know I don't need to say that, because it can be felt anyway. But I will continue to, to illuminate these things, and to write and to share my personal experiences, and to have his journey live on through me, because maybe I can articulate and be a mouthpiece for him in a way that he could not do for himself. And maybe there's some sort of higher purpose, like me being a vessel for him in some way, to even like me crying publicly and sharing like this video, like, it's something that was available to him, but he didn't feel like he could do. But I think that he was like always screaming for help deep down inside, and he wanted to connect, but he couldn't. And so I'm that person right now, you know? So, it's interesting when we talk about Black Lives Matter too, because I'm not like so activisty the way that I used to be and everything, even though I support, but I think also we need to like include like mental health stuff in there too, because it's not always like someone else doing the violence. We can do violence to ourselves in so many different ways because of the world that we live in. And I'm not going to say that my brother's experience was all due to racism, but I know that just there are many different factors that affect like how his experience went. And I think, yeah, that it's part of it, and I can't separate it from that. So that's all I have to share right now. I'm gonna do some stretching and be on with my day. And I'm glad that I got the chance to share this. Yeah, sending love. Uh, Love you guys, those who made it to the end and who are going on this journey with me. Thank you so much. Love you. Peace.